Hello. So let's come back to our business, our Web3 business. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. And so now I will welcome Remy Oscan, which is just there preparing his mic, I think, for the next panel discussion. Before the panel, we will have a little presentation about initiatives with institutions and corporates, and Remy will present that. And right after it will be a panel about DAO, new paradigm for modern business approach. So Remy, if you can join me. I give you the stage. Enjoy.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm quite honored to be here for this first edition of ParisDOT.comm. It is the first time the Polkadot ecosystem and community brings here in Paris, and I hope you will enjoy it. Before starting a round panel discussing about the future of decentralized autonomous organization, we will start to introduce the unique business professional network here in France called the French Blockchain Federation, and I'm honored to be the president. We cannot construct and build a sustainable ecosystem here in France dedicated to blockchain if we are not able to build sustainable relationship between huge companies, small ones, center of research, key makers, regulators, and governments. That's why in 2020, we have started the launch of the French Blockchain Federation. It aims to gather all the key players of the industry here in France and to build sustainable relationship with foreign countries, but more than that, between public and private entities. And the ability to make sure that our industry will be the most important pillar of the economy, the French economy, it's based on our ability to have a collective approach. More on companies we will be, more important they will be, they provide us an ability to negotiate, to provide the environment, regulatory environments, the fundraising and taxation discussion at a good level. The French Blockchain Federation has always made sure that the use of blockchain technology has not at the same speed of adoption. First sectors who has adopted blockchain technology is finance, of course. But blockchain technology is not only related to finance, not only related to crypto assets, even it's the first use cases of the blockchain technology. That's why we have decided to set up a sectoral approach. Together, professionals from this sector with companies and experts from the blockchain fields. And we have started what we have called strategic committees, dedicated to circular economy, dedicated to third parties digital, like banks, insurance, and investors. Strategic committee dedicated to regulation, because we know regulation can improve or reduce the adoption of a technology. And we discussed after that during the panel about the regulation applicable to decentralized autonomous organization. In order to make sure that we provide a sustainable regulatory framework, it needs to come from the concerned companies. That's why it's really important you, as a company, or as individual experts, join a professional federation to make sure that your voice will be heard at the right level. The French Blockchain Federation works with various partners. For us, it's really important to allow French blockchain companies to make business in France, but also in other countries. That's why we use the network and collaborate with sustainable partners, medias, institutional ones, certification bureau, and of course, events like this one today. The Blockchain Federation is not only composed of small companies, it's gather major companies. And now we are more than 80 companies to work constantly to construct and build the future of the French blockchain ecosystem. Like you know, probably, France is one of the most attractive currently country for making business related to blockchain technology and Web3. That's why it's really important that you have made the effort to come from other countries here in Paris. That's why we want to welcome you and thank you for your intention in France. What we do currently, we are doing a mapping of all the blockchain companies based here in France. Why? Because it's really important to understand how many companies we have by each sectors. What about the adoption rate of blockchain technology for various sectors? Luxury, education, environment, sustainability, finance, meds, and quite more than 20 sectors currently using blockchain technology here in France. So blockchain technology is not only related to crypto assets, it's more than that, and we will explain it just after that in a few minutes. Each year, we are publishing a state of the industry, which allows companies, key players, decision makers, governments, financial supervisory authority, but also governments, to make sure that the public policies are going in the right direction. We cannot have a public policies which is in the opposite direction of what companies need and they want. We need to follow the market, and this documentation help us a lot. Take a look about the previous cartography we have made just 18 months ago in France. And if you are one of the company concerned, and if you want to be registered, identified here in France, please contact the Blockchain Federation or myself. But when we speak about blockchain industry, we don't have key metrics, key numbers. This industry will represent $65 billion in 2025, so it's only in 3 years. So it's not just a little market. It's currently exploding and growing each year more and more here in Europe, but also at a global international scale. It will represent at the same time 10% of the global GDP. So it's not nothing. So it means that 1 to 10 revenue creation of richest in the world will come from blockchain technology. So it's not something just a trend, it's more than that. It's something will stay here for a long time. The question is, do you want to be part of it or not? What we have already achieved and what we are currently doing. A professional federation represents all the companies from the blockchain ecosystem. So it was built for you, not for governments. It was built for you, to help you to make more professionalized, to identify relevant business network partners, to make sure that we have in front of you the people of the company you need to extend your business and to make sure you will grow here in France, but more than that, to illustrate that blockchain technology could create major company here in France. That's why we promote French blockchain companies in major events like CES in Las Vegas, for example, or Vivatech, and here during the ParisDOT.comm, because the Polkadot protocol is one of the most sustainable in terms of technical aspects, and we will discuss about that in a few minutes. Our goal is to stimulate the market. How could we stimulate the market if we are not able to have a sectoral approach? To make sure that we respect the constraints for every sectors, the need, but also the speed of adoption of blockchain technology. Having a federation allows us to get more and more counterparties from the regulators to help them to regulate properly and not over-regulate. So you have your expertise, you have your voice, and you need to make sure that a federation will help you to reach the top of the pyramid. Before starting the panel, I would like just to let you know that if we want to succeed, we will succeed because it's not the most intelligent species who will succeed, nor the most strength, but the only one who is able to make adaptation regarding evolution of our ecosystem. The question is, do you will adapt? And I hope you will adapt really, really soon. Thank you so much. Don't move, stay here. We will start right now a new panel, a round table dedicated to decentralized autonomous organization. And for that, we have speakers from various parts of the world here coming. And I would like to ask you just one thing, to make a warm welcome to our speakers now for this panel. Thank you. Please, Arthur, come here in the speech. Arthur de la Brunière is the senior strategist at EY, Faber Novel and blockchain, and has been active in this space since 2016. He already worked with various clients to help them to reach the DAO design shaping. Please take a seat of the choice. Thank you so much for Arthur. Limo, please, warm welcome for Limo, which is the co-founder of Chaos DAO. It's a DAO based on polka dots. Thank you so much to be here. You will allow us to understand more how DAOs works. Please take a seat. Thank you so much to be here. Simon Thomas, please come here on the stage. Simon Thomas comes from blockchain partnership and sales manager from Exion, which is a 100% subsidiary file from a well-known major company called EDF. It will help us to understand the value to use DAOs for securing various protocols, for example. Please, Patrick McGrath, coming from Berlin and United States, on the stage, please. Founder of Monolith Games and member of the Blockchain Gaming Association based in Switzerland. Thank you to be here, Patrick. And the last one, please, Luc Jodet, welcome on the stage, please. It's a partner of Exchange, a venture capitalist investment fund based on blockchain technology. Perhaps you will allow us to understand how could we evaluate a business on decentralized autonomous organization. And I'm honored to manage this panel today. So, we are now various experts from France, Berlin, Switzerland. Thank you so much, first of all, to come here in Paris to illustrate what brilliant things we can do with decentralized autonomous organization. First time we heard about DAOs was in 2016 with the project called the DAO from the blockchain Ethereum. Since 2016, we have made lots of advancements regarding the use of DAOs and the trust they can provide. And I would like to ask you with a basic question, but we need to start with that to make sure we are aligned with the audience. What is currently a DAO and how it's work? Limo, please, could you let us know what is it? Because you are starting Chaos DAO.
I would say at a basic level, a DAO is a governance framework to allow the members of the DAO to democratically vote in a way where you have stakeholder capital, right? The members are the ultimate decision makers, and that can be a social DAO, it can be a protocol DAO like Polkadot, it can exist in a lot of different ways that you have this governance framework.
So basically, it's a virtual entity who runs and relies on smart contract. I think smart contract is one of the core concepts related to DAOs. Please, Arthur, could you just let us know what about the characteristic of a DAO and how is reliable to smart contract?
So yeah, indeed, I think the smart contract is important. I think we might stay inclusive and maybe imagine forms of decentralized autonomous organizations that do not rely on smart contracts per se, but in the end, you need a way to have this decentralization that's part of its name. And of course, I totally agree with the framework part. I think it's a tool, like blockchain is a tool to enable people to organize themselves and to trust each other while working together. And I think that's one of the points I try to care about. We are today building a DAO for l'Humanité, a French journal, thinking about what it could be. And I think sometimes you need to answer what it cannot be. And in the end, it cannot be run by one entity, it cannot be centralized. So, of course, I might say the evidence here, but it has to be decentralized and it has to be autonomous. So decentralized thanks to tools, but also thanks to the logic of its governance. And that's why I think the governance framework definition is the best one.
So basically, if we can say that without smart contract, the DAOs cannot work, because smart contracts runs the rules and define the rules between all the members. And the membership of a DAO belongs to what? How can I be sure that I'm a member of this organization? Patrick, could you let us know how can we make sure that we are a member of a DAO or we are not a member of a DAO?
Well, I think it's fairly simple. A DAO usually, I would say, has a token. I haven't seen one that hasn't, so I don't know if anyone's seen that, but partaking in some form of ownership of the token will give you representation proportional to how long you may have had that token, how many tokens you have, and that gives you a right to vote or submit propositions within the DAO.
So if we compare with traditional business running on a company, when you are a shareholder, it's because you have a share of the company. And you are a member of a DAO because you have a token. So it means that every DAO runs on smart contract, and as a member of this DAO, you have a token. But with this token, depends on a DAO, we can do various things. Luc, could you just let us know what is the most interesting DAO you already seen in terms of rights given, provided by the token ownership?
So I don't know which is the most interesting. There are tons of them. The question is, to me, it's more like which ones are actually kind of working today, because we're still in the early stage, I think, of DAOs. The ones that we see working well today are kind of investment DAOs. So kind of group of people puts a pot of money together, a pot of cryptocurrency together, and then have in a wallet with a multi-sig, and then have a smart contract that enables kind of proposing and deals and voting on it. To me, that's what is kind of starting to find a product market fit that works with DAOs. All the rest, and I'm part of many DAOs that I really enjoy. You see the governance is still, trying to find a way to get either participation or find ways to delegate. And I think that's those evolutions is what we're seeing slowly right now. It's like something like Friends with Benefits. It's fascinating. I had to vote on whether or not we actually wanted to sell some tokens to Andreessen Horowitz before the deal was announced as a member. That's fascinating. At the same time, it felt a bit mute because it was kind of obvious that everybody was, yes, of course, we'll sell $10 million worth of tokens to Andreessen Horowitz. So it's still early, and there's still plenty of things interesting. As I said, investment DAOs right now for me are probably the ones that are finding a product market fit that kind of works.
You raise an interesting point and jump into another question, another aspect. It means that DAOs could be used for various areas: charity, investment, vote, social governance. And so it means that DAOs are not related to only one use cases. And it asks a question about how can be member of a DAO since the beginning. Does a DAO will remain always open to new members, or it could be a closed-ended DAOs? What do you think, guys? Take the mic if you have something interesting to say about that right now.
They don't need to necessarily be open. Maybe at the start they can be, but the members of a DAO can change the rules of the DAO and make it closed. It's a very flexible organization type.
So it means that everyone can enter or go exit from. Am I right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, please, Archer.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, we were talking about smart contracts. The idea of smart contracts is that the rules of the governance are run by the smart contracts, but the rules to change the rules also are in the smart contracts. And if people vote, you have to have an amount of yes, an amount of people voting, but if people vote for changing the rules and the governments, it has to change, and no one central entity can avoid changing the rules when the DAO decided it. And I think when we are talking about DAOs that are running today and working, people running the DAO have to imagine one day they might get ruled out, voted out. So that's one point I think we have to keep in mind when talking about true decentralized DAOs.
This is one important point about ParisDOT. It's fully decentralized. There's no single authority that has to implement some governance vote. It's all permissionless. Anybody in ParisDOT can propose anything, be that a runtime upgrade or requesting money from the treasury or anything in between. We don't have to rely on an entity like Parity Technologies or Web3 Foundation to actually implement that stuff. It's all self-executing. And a lot of other protocols, if you count protocols as DAOs, they have this single point of failure where the community, the DAO members, have to signal their intent on something, and then the developer team has to actually implement that. So you're trusting the developer team to actually follow through on what the community voted on, whereas on ParisDOT you don't need to do that. You don't need to trust anybody, and it's really, really powerful.
The question you raised implies the choice of the protocol itself. And we know currently that in the Polkadot ecosystem, running DAOs is currently a top trending topic currently, because perhaps it was the wish of the Dr. Gavin Wood, which is the author and founder of Polkadot, but more than that, he introduced the concept of smart contract with the publication of a purple paper a few years ago. So if you have a choice to select a protocol, why did you choose to select Polkadot instead of other EVM blockchains? Who can answer to it? Simon, I trust you.
I can start to speak. There are many differences between protocols. Well, we at Exion, we are really agnostic in terms of protocol. We are the road builders during the automobile revolution. So we build, we pave the roads for protocols to be able to be adopted by big institutions. So we often do some advisory for companies who would like to start a DAO. The main reason why Polkadot is often chosen by us is the roadmap and the interoperability between all the parachains that gives a bright future for any type of DAO that would like to run on Polkadot, because it won't lack of an issue with interoperability in the future, because well, as you know, Polkadot will be able, all the Polkadot ecosystem will be able to send message from one parachain to another in the future. And so building a DAO on the Polkadot ecosystem is something that is really, really more than a good idea, I would say.
Limo, we know that you're already running a DAO on Polkadot. Could you let us know why you have chosen Polkadot instead of other blockchain protocols?
So when we founded Chaos DAO, we were basically just in the community, and enjoy, like you said, this interoperability. And from there, we decided that our DAO, we want to focus on governance. So our members vote in our internal voting, and we vote on Polkadot, Kusama, and HydraDX on-chain governance. So we collect delegations, and we use that power to that collective size to kind of try and move the protocol in the direction that we think about, right? I think Polkadot in general is the best ecosystem in terms of how open it is, and a lot of other ecosystems are very lacking on the governance front, in my opinion.
So you have chosen to start your DAO because of the governance of the protocol itself, not your DAO. So it's important to have the relevant choice regarding perhaps for investment aspects. Look, and Patrick, you run your own business relating to gaming. Look, you used to invest on some companies and perhaps some DAOs. Do you think that the choice of the protocol could be, for you, an issue when you decided to invest on a specific company or perhaps on a DAO?
Yeah, so at Exchange, so we can invest both in equity and tokens. First fund in France to be able to do it. And of course, some of the investments either have could have a DAO or some form of on-chain governance at least. So we're extremely interested in seeing that they actually have at least some concept of how to apply this. So it's still, once again, governance on-chain is still quite nascent and young. And so we're mainly looking for people that are interested in experimenting and really committed to building, because we do think it actually helps with federating the community. Now, when it comes to the underlying protocol, we're quote-unquote chain agnostic, meaning that we can we're okay with any chain. It just needs to make sense, needs to be able, the application needs to actually serve a customer in the end, and that's a real question for us. So we indeed, most of the investment we've made was more in the EVM side of things. We are looking at least one investment, or two investments in the Polkadot, who's built on a parachain on Polkadot. So we're open to it. The only thing is, today it is true, we know most of the adoption has gone on Ethereum. This being said, we do see some community building on other chains like Polkadot, Cosmos, even to a certain extent Starknet. So we're very open, and the question is mainly, is your product actually filling a need for a community that is there? And as long as you answer that question, the underlying protocol, as long as it's decentralized enough, let's say. I'm sorry if there's Solana people here, but yeah, I do. We're multi-chain, but it will take a bit of convincing for me to invest in Solana projects. But I'm open to. I'm a VC, so I change my mind all the time. But as long as you're decentralized enough, we're looking at any of those chains or protocol.
Okay, so but for companies, just keep the mic. I have another question for you. I think it's really important for companies or people who want to run a DAO tomorrow. If they want to raise funds in front of VCs like you, the question is, how can we evaluate the DAO? Because with companies, we used to use traditional metrics like free cash flow, DCF, other methods to evaluate a company. But for DAOs, how could we, do you think, on your expertise, experience, how could we evaluate them?
Today, so of course, all those metrics are, even in the traditional world, evolve over time. I mean, back in the day, we used to value companies at the book value, basically, literally the hard assets you had in the value in the company. Now we value with discounted cash flows, and for startups, even discounted cash flow, we value on a multiple of ARR, so kind of like what we consider recurring revenue, or at least revenue that we feel is has some staying power, at least. So all those metrics evolve all the time in the traditional world, and in the more crypto world on tokens, they evolve even more because they're even newer. So there's plenty of ways to evaluate. Still, there are some basics. I mean, fees generated by the protocol, I think, is today the way we measure activity probably the most accurately, and that's how you see some protocols, being able to really generate fees paid by the users compared to other protocols that don't. It's not the only metric. Just like in VC, that's not the only metric you look. AR is not the only metric. Usage could be something that we're looking at. So how many transactions, how many active users. When it comes to governance, we're also talking about participation. It's like, do you actually? It's nice to have, I don't know, 100,000 members, but if you only have like 10 that are actually actively participating, it's not really it's not really interesting. So all those metrics can be looked at. Fees. In general, a VC kind of likes to see cash flows and see that there are some people paying for a service. So that will be our default, but we'll also look at a bunch of other metrics as well.
So basically, it's not easy, and we have to take a look on the various metrics like how many members you have in a community, how many active members do you have, does your business revenue and business model fit the need of the market, and of course, the team behind the start of the DAO.
Yeah, so the earlier you go, the earlier you're looking more at the capacity for the team and the structure to build what they're promising. The more you're advancing, the more you're going to, can you actually generate, not necessarily profits, but at least some value and capture that value. And that's core to what we're looking. But yeah, if you're really early, mainly you're looking at the team and you're looking at participation, is there a community that actually committed to this, to building this?
Okay, thank you so much for this question. If you have a few questions, just keep in mind, I will come back to the audience in a few minutes, but we raised an important point. Yes, Arthur, I will give you the mic. Please let us know what you want to say.
I was just thinking, and tell me if you don't agree, I think that might be interesting. Maybe in the definition of the DAO, we did not distinguish between the project of running a DAO and the project run by the DAO. And I think maybe one of the key metrics when you're looking at a DAO is maybe the community around it and the difference between the community and the members or active members, participating members, but also maybe one of the most interesting DAOs are the ones that are building something, the organization that is existing not to regroup people that are passionate, not only, which is already something, but a DAO that is organizing people and reuniting people who are building something. And then the product being built, or products, have a value also, and not only for VCs, of course, I think they have, but also for corporate, which is more of my job, for corporates to, through DAOs and DAOs building, understand the Web3 and the Web3 space and the philosophy it offers of decentralization and everything you know we share about Web3. So maybe we have to distinguish between the two concepts.
I would say that you're spot on with that. Just coming from the gaming space, you have a product team that's actually building something, right? It takes a lot of cohesion within a team just to even understand the vision, and that's on the game team. There's a lot of games that have DAOs. I think there's a really big one, Star Atlas, that is trying to, have its own Polis token that you can then vote on features to get to the game. And honestly, we looked into a DAO and scrapped it because it's just too difficult to have individuals that aren't on the game team understand the direction of a game or a product or a company. And so having that kind of delineation of the business side of it versus the community. And this is why I think a lot of DAOs, again, specifically in gaming, are DAO lights. That, you can vote on these special features that can get into the game, but the game team chose which features to put up for vote. It's not like coming out of the ether. You don't have design by committee, so nothing gets done. And I think this is a great way that to articulate it. You just have the actual business of the DAO versus that community aspect. And then we can get into like the legal aspect of it, like who's actually creating the legal DAO versus who's trying to participate in it.
So for you, we need a captain on a boat.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, no, thank you.
So
and I think maybe there's a... I think being able to vote because you are a member of a DAO is something that has some value, but has its limits. And I think voting in France as a citizen is a right, but in DAOs it's more like you're giving something to the team by voting. You're not the one you are getting something because you're giving feedback and stuff, but voting is not a right that you are so lucky to have. In the end, the team is happy for you to vote. But so maybe interesting DAOs that are more evolved today are the ones that are not only having their community vote, but their community take part in the more than the governments, in the product, but I think this is the hardest part, because as you said, having people give their opinion or maybe ideas, not only opinions and not only votes, giving their ideas on products, they have to understand it, that in the end they have to be part of the team, not just of the community.
So I usually have a joke on DAOs, but which is just a parallel with DeFi, where in DeFi we always say it's funny because we're just reinventing all of finance or revisiting all of finance, 200 years of finance at warp speed, and rediscovering a bunch of things that have already been discovered by traditional finance. DAOs, I think, are doing the exact same thing. They're rediscovering like 2,000 years of corporate governance and rediscovering obvious things. I mean, the first thing is at the beginning, DAOs were kind of like everybody votes on everything, and then what happens is that, well, there are very few people that have just the time to actually vote on everything. So you start having delegates, and so you recreate a representative system, and then of course you have a bunch of representatives that take decisions, but they don't necessarily execute because they're just representatives. So what? Well, you name a bunch of people that actually are here to execute those decisions and manage and build, and then there's honestly one vision and it needs to be organized. So you kind of need maybe one person that kind of organizes all the other executives, and you've recreated, the traditional corporate structure with the CEO, an executive
and
team,
the shareholders,
and an assembly of shareholders. So this being said, while it's a joke, I think what happens also while we do this is that because we're revisiting, all those things, we're also discovering and implementing new things. I mean, liquid democracy, that is at the core of some of the delegation system that we've been putting in place in DAOs, is something that's very interesting. It's like, why do we have to, why is each delegate as important? If there are 10 people in the DAO and 3 delegates, they should not have each a third of the vote. And if there's 5 votes for one delegate, this guy should have 5. I don't know, 3 and 2 because they have 2 votes. Those kinds of ideas, because we're reinventing the wheel, basically, means that we're also finding new efficiencies that have been completely bypassed by all this 2,000 years of history. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to reinvent, to revisit those 2,000 years of history.
So it's one of the challenges of the governance of the DAO itself. So it means that when you start and set up a DAO, be careful about the governance rule you already put in the code, because it will be perhaps difficult to change it, and because you have a sustainable business, perhaps it's not working because you suffer from your own organization, your own challenges. The other question we can ask, like an entrepreneur, is that if I'm going to set up a DAO, is there any legal recognition? Is there any legal issues? Can I set up a DAO here in France or in the United States?
Yeah, you can set up a DAO from basically anywhere. From what I know, one of the most advanced projects in legal recognition is called City DAO. So it's a DAO that is established in Wyoming in the US, because in 2021 a law passed and recognized officially in Wyoming the DAO
like a
governance.
limited liability company, an LLC. Yes.
Yeah, and the DAO governance. And so it's basically it's a city that is tokenized in NFT. The piece of lands are tokenized in NFT, and you can have a citizen ownership by having an NFT. And they are currently trying to build a city through a DAO to, reinvent politics and how to govern a city through the blockchain and the traceability and transparency of the blockchain. So from what I know, it's one of the most advanced projects in having a DAO legally recognized. I don't know if there have been some advance since, but I think it's one of the good examples on how a DAO can be legally recognized and how we can build, quotes, real stuff, unquote, using blockchain.
Please.
During your presentation before the panel, you said that France is very pro-crypto, very friendly for crypto and blockchain and DAOs. In France, what are the types of businesses that a DAO can open? Is it like a non-profit organization? I think it's called non-lucrative organization in France. From your experience, what's the most common type of business model?
So I'll answer that quickly. I made an investment in Morpho, who actually uses an association. This being said, the association does not really represent the DAO. There's not really any correlation between the two. When we created the DAO for Ariane, we did that with a Swiss company, with a French association owning all the shares. So there's plenty of different weird structures. Of course, the foundation structure, but same thing. It's never really a representation of the DAO. It's just more like a way to have a pool of money managed, and then there's no official, one for one. And ultimately, to answer your earlier question, the thing about DAOs, what's interesting is that what I found fascinating is that it's a new concept. Today, you do not have international companies. It doesn't exist. You have multinationals because they have a company set up in a bunch of different countries. But there is no international law, and you could not actually create a company that is international by nature. It's always linked to a country somewhere. The idea of a DAO was actually to create an organization that is native to the internet, where the legal authority to manage it is not the legal system of a country, but a smart contract and the internet. It's a weird idea, of course. It's something that isn't recognized by exactly nobody today. There are some states, some countries that try to find ways to recognize, to a certain extent, DAOs that actually then decide to be regulated or to obey the law of this country, but there's no such thing as a DAO right now in the legal doctrine. Is it going to change? I'm convinced it's going to change. It will take some time, but I'm pretty convinced that more and more we'll have countries that start recognizing it, and we've already lived this. We take it as granted that Europe actually recognized the notion of utility token. Utility token is a brand new concept that was accepted a few years ago, and I think DAOs will live a similar process where over time some regions, some countries will start being like, well, you know what, DAOs can be recognized, and we'll recognize them as a new type of organization. Once again, it will be long.
For sure.
But I think the main question that has to be answered is who gets to tax? I mean, this is what has to be solved, right?
This is the underlying question.
No, but the thing about this is that I actually think it might be an accelerator for DAOs, because right now, if you're in Europe, for instance, why are most companies actually headquartered in Dublin? It's not because they love the weather, even though it's a beautiful country. It's actually because that's where they can optimize tax the most. And a bunch of countries in Europe are very pissed off about this, finding ways to alleviate this by putting like this 3% tax on your activities in the country and not just a corporate tax on where your HQ is. So it is already an issue. How do you tax actual companies today that have international presence but only a headquarters in one country? And I think to an extent DAOs could be a thing where you do not have the blockage of one country being like, well, actually I'm benefiting from the system, so I'm going to block everything. When you have a DAO and DAO pays taxes nowhere, then nobody is going to block, because you actually need to start instituting a law that says, hey, you're a DAO, you need to pay taxes, here's how we're going to tax you. And that tax can be based on activity on the territory, like this idea at the European level that was introduced on GAFAs.
So it will be probably individual taxation because of the situation about how it works. You cannot tax an entity which is fully decentralized. Like you said, we need to have some criteria to apply current rule of taxation, and it could be for individuals or corporation which belongs to the DAO as a member. I think that's currently the only possibility to have a taxation.
So some form of pass-through. Like the DAO, whatever mechanism, you make money, passes through to the holder, the token holder, DAO member, and wherever they live, they get taxed within that jurisdiction. This is what you're saying?
Yes.
Like one way to get around it, yeah.
But it fits.
I'm
Yes,
going to say a
Arthur.
big word, please don't leave the room, but imagine royalties to the state. Imagine if every transaction, depending on where you live or declare you live, a part of it, royalty, it wouldn't be called a royalty, but would go to the address of the state, French ETH address, for example, or Polkadot. That could be a thing, maybe, and we have the logic of it, of the automation of some parts of your sell, of your selling, that goes to another contract than you.
So, I mean, we're definitely talking about something that is not going to happen in the next 5 years, just to be clear. But I do think, but even though it's kind of funny because it's something that seems so remote, a lot of evolutions in corporate governance have actually followed a similar path. You used to be 100% liable for every business decision you made in a company. And then we introduced this idea of limited liability companies. I always kind of imagine the debtor's prison guy who went to the first LLC owner who had gone bankrupt and say, hey, you owe all this money to your debtors and I need to take you to prison. It's like, no, I have this paper that says that actually I don't owe anything, just the corporation I created and who's now bankrupt owes it to you, so go find this legal person that is a company that doesn't exist anymore, and they're the ones who owe your debt, not me. So we've created those weird ideas, weird concepts, and we can create a new concept called the DAO, and we can definitely create new ways of taxing based on the blockchain. I really don't see why that could not be possible.
Basically, you cannot escape from this, so make sure that you have made relevant decisions.
And I think maybe for today, what exists, or what we tell our clients is that you need a legal wrapper for your existing DAO. I don't know if you've had to set up one, but depending on where you want to set it up, you have to set it up for the legal side of things, but also for the financial side of things. For example, it's difficult for how do you call it in English? For some fund of a pile of money to be spent by a smart contract legally. You have someone to be liable behind it.
So if we could make just a brief resume of this interesting panel, which is going to the end in the coming minutes, basically DAOs could be suitable for quite every kind of business, whatever you are located, but make sure that you have made right decision in terms of governance, in terms of how you will set up it, and if of course your product or service fit the market. If it's not, the community will not remain yours and will disappear. Thank you so much to all our experts tonight. Please, please could be a warm welcome for them, please. Thank you so much. Just stay on stage. I would like to know if there is some question from the audience. Please take the mic if you want to ask any question. Feel free to do it. We are here for that. Just raise your hand if you have any question. No question. It means that everything is clear or not? Perfect. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Watch your step. Thank you, Remy. You should stay on the on
I
the
need to
stage.
stay?
No. But you can take my role. Thank you
More
very
than
much.
happy
It was
to do
very
that.
good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Okay, now let's switch to the next topic, which is a deep topic actually. With Rafael Rossello, he's joining the stage right now. He's from All Invest, and he will speak about how avoiding chaos, a story between humans and blockchains, right? The stage is yours. Here is the speaker.
Je presse
Yeah.
go.
Next and previous. Receiver. The stage is yours.
Excellent. Good afternoon. My name is... No. Thank you very much for inviting me to share some thoughts I have put together in the very last 20-25 years. And actually, I'm quite moved because the title of this conference, ParisDOT.comm, means a lot for me due to the fact between 96, 7 and 2001, I used to be called by the market authorities in Europe the little Mozart of the dot-com IPOs. At that time, I was yet a very strange person for my partners because they didn't understand what dot-com meant. And honestly, it was the same for me, except I have a feeling that something was going on and could change a lot of things. And obviously, I was right, they were wrong. So 22, 24 years down the road, being with you today, considering the Web3 adventure is truly an opportunity. Being part of the, let's say, traditional finance world, if you ask to my partners, colleagues, business relatives, will we face a chaos? Of course, the answer will be no way. Stupid question. Everything is under control. We have a robust economy. The cornerstone on which we have been established is strong enough. Don't worry, sleep well, the future is safe. The reason why I do not share at all their vision, it's because the cornerstone of the existing economy, and accordingly the political issues, social issues related to the economy, are on a false assumptions, which is this one. Everything is related in our lives to the economic growth. And because I am a curious person, I have done some research when I was the little Mozart of the dot-com. And I said, but what is going on, truly, if we are looking under the surface of the event? And I have discovered this funny sketch that I have taken and transformed from the New Yorker, okay? So I've put the label on the top skier of the gross national product because, surprisingly, nobody wants to see that the economical growth is getting down. Not since the COVID or the last subprime event. No. Everything started in the 70s. So now it's more than half century that we keep saying, oh, don't worry, and this is what our Ministry of Finance is saying, don't worry about the debt, because the economical growth will reimburse it. Fuck, guy. Fuck. It's absolutely untrue, because for the last 40, 45, 50 years, in certain geographical area, this is the debt which is only and exclusively generating economical growth. That's a fact. The German people would say, das ist. No discussion about that. Of course, we can argue about the modalities, the magnitude of the phenomenon, and so on. But that is a fact. So, according to this, I dare saying to my community, guys, we will face something bad, really bad. Okay. On the top of that, it's not only economy, it's everything related to the economy. So the democracy, the social contract, the common life, the freedom, everything is in jeopardy because the ground on which we are building the future is fake. Okay? And more important, my grandfather is in a very puzzling situation. Because for the people in this room who has some basic knowledge about economics and economic growth, the engine, the true power of the economical growth is the growth of the productivity gains. And again, for my community, there is a risk, there is no decline in this growth. It's fake. It's fake. You have a lot of stats published by the World Bank, by the OECD, by the IMF. You have plenty of figures you can look for on your own, and they will show you that the growth of productivity gain is falling down. Okay. Once you have that, it means that the value creation, what an ambiguous word. Because due to the fact we are unable to open our eyes and to look at the real world, we are playing with words, wealth, value, and our minds are mixed up, are puzzled, because from time to time we are using one word instead of the others. But for me, being an investment banker, I know exactly the difference. Either you have the wealth, the prosperity generated by the historical shape of the economic growth. And this was real. For workers in the 18th, in the 19th, and in the beginning of the 20s, he had something real. Today, and for the last 30, 35 years, I have been what we call a financial engineer, creating value, and you know why. No, not why, but how? With a debt. If you look at all the financial math, you have always a leverage, and the leverage means debt. Okay? So, on a macroeconomical approach, we are depending on the debt, and on the microeconomical level, it's the same thing. So, the neoliberalism, which is, again, it's something strange, because a lot of the people are considering that there is no difference between the historical liberalism and the current neoliberalism. There is a huge difference. the liberalism of the light of the end of the 18th century was a philosophy, was, how can I say that? It was a move from the people and their leaders to change the world. And it has been done. The neo, it's not any longer a philosophical trend. It's a management philosophy. We are only dealing with management. So when we are dealing with management, of course, people in my neighborhood need to deliver. And due to the fact they were unable to rescue the economical growth, thanks to Mr. Clinton, Mr. Draghi, Mr. Benmark, all the leaders after Margaret Thatcher's down to Emmanuel Macron, they have done this. They have authorized a glut of cash, okay? And once you have something like that, with a consistent public deficit plus quantitative easing, of course, you are generating a fake wealth, a book value. Okay. So, we are on a volcano because a lot of my clients, they are saying, my company was worth 10 million euros last year, and today you are saying that it's only 7 or 8. So I have lost 3 million or 30 million or 300 million. And I am spending most of my time to explain to them that this past wealth never exists. Never, ever. When you have a press announcement, Mr. Musk has lost 100 billion, it means nothing. It means only that the 100 billion value he had was on a very short period of time. Okay? So I know it's quite difficult, because once you have in your books a value, everybody, including myself, we do consider that the value is real. It's only real if you have the possibility to get cash against the value, not if you are unable to get the cash. Okay. So, due to this, we have this famous trickle-down theory, la théorie du ruissellement. It's beautiful. For your own information, I've been for 6 years in a row one of the partners of the small mid-cap in Rothschild Bank, and I had this sketch behind my desk. My colleagues were not that happy. Not at all. Why? Because I said, yes, in theory, and when I was a heavy drinker, I was playing with this. It's funny, because if you are playing right, yes, you can pour a bottle of champagne or wine, and all the glasses will get full. Okay, but in the real life, no. This is what is going on. The wealth is stuck up here, and it's inflating because it's a bubble. So what happened when we are facing this? There is no other way, and the history is saying this. It has been the same with the Middle East speculator, with the Spanish speculator in the 17th century. it's going on and on and on, and every time the word is, oh, no, 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 don't worry. Today it is different. My God. No, it will be exactly the same. And when you have these billions of fake value, one day or the other, you will, unfortunately, you will just be the watcher of this fire with a decline in the fake value. Except when the goodwill, the excess value disappear, the debt remain. And that's the question nobody wants to see, because they are scared. They are scared to death to say to their voters, okay, guys, we've done something wrong, okay? So, once we have this, unfortunately, and this is why I've used the word chaos, of course, when I say yes, I fear that we may face a chaos, I am as afraid as you. I'm not a stupid guy. Because I have been the witness of riots in Mexico and in the States. And when you have the equivalent of the Guardia Civil in Puebla, with gun loaded with true ammunition, then you realize that the violence that we went through, of course, it's really bad in France. But this is nothing with the true violence. So, in order to avoid or to anticipate or to manage, what could we do? And you have, in this room, you have already considered a new world. And this new world will not be an alternative, because unfortunately there is no global alternative. But this could be a tool to adapt on the margin how to organize the society, how to play with the people. And yes, I am convinced that we can get back to this. Okay. How? First, thanks to the chairman of my fan club, yes, we have to think differently. And I think that in this room, most of you are ready to think differently. The second is to be ready. Why? Because unfortunately, I don't know when this will happen. Will it be tomorrow? Will it be in 6 months? Will it be in 5 years? God knows. I hope God knows. But nothing is written. Nothing has been engraved in a stone. Be ready. And the tool for me is this one. So, looking for what could be the best picture to summarize my vision, I like this one because you shake hands between the digital world and the human people with blood and flesh. Okay, so I do believe, but I am among myself, among my professional position today. Maybe we are 2, 3 among the 100 of colleagues I have. A lot of them, they do consider that I am wasting my time in coming and explaining this to you, because in their eyes, you do not exist. So it's very, very strange because back to my .com experience, I am looking on both sides and I am saying, yes, something will happen, which is the blockchain generation. For how long? When the market will be ready? I don't know. So this is why previously I said, please be ready. Be ready because when you will have the signs that I have shown you rapidly, I do hope, and as long as I have a little power on my community, I will do everything I can to help you to organize the mutation, the transformation. Okay. So, just to complete, keep in mind first that what you are contemplating will not be a global solution. Unfortunately or fortunately, it will have to compromise with the existing world. The existing world will not vanish like that. No. But you can feel a gap. And this is one of the messages I am sending this afternoon. The second, and which is the very last one, is the trust. The golden key is the trust. Why? Because the existing real world is managed by skeptical people. The power is shared by suspicious, skeptical people. And unfortunately, you will not get rid of them in total. So you will have to deal with them. And if you have to deal with them, the very first preliminary step is to give them the feeling that what you are contemplating is solid. Solid meaning they must trust what you are putting together. Okay? So I think I have done. Thanks very much.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I have been a little bit too long.
No, it's okay. It's perfect. Thank you very much. It was a masterclass, we can say. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
very
much.
welcome.
So yeah, it was a really interesting topic. I would like you to applaud one more time, Raphael, please. It was very nice, very interesting. I feel a bit depressed right now. But okay, the solution is in the Web3. So Web3 will save the world. So now we will switch to the same topic actually, but with the theory part. And so I will welcome on the stage Grégory Guittard from Journal du Coin. I don't know if he's there. And with the panelists Sabine Van Hack-Lepic from le Barreau de Paris. Alors, yes, Grégory, you are there, perfect. If you need the pointer. Then we have Yann Lefloche from Trax. This guy, come on the stage. You can already sit here. Don't be shy. Yeah, please. And we also have Federico Ast from Clearos, Babacar Ensek from Petal Group, and Cyril Armange from Finance Innovation. And so I'll let Grégory take the floor. Enjoy, guys. You can applaud them again.
Nice. Hello everyone. So I'm Grégory Guittard from Le Journal du Coin, and I'm very pleased to be there for this roundtable co-organized with Sabine van Eck-Lepic. So as we said, today we're going to discuss about how to avoid chaos. But let's do this, let's say, with some fun, maybe, and good humor. So for starting, let's do some introduction of each panelist. I think that maybe you could introduce yourselves. So let's start with you, if you wish.
Yeah, I'm Federico Ast. I'm founder and CEO of Kleros. Kleros is a dispute resolution system based on Web3 that, lots of people are building lots of apps in Web3, and many of those apps will have something in common. They will have disputes among their users, like in an e-commerce marketplace, you have a dispute between a buyer and a seller, or an insurance contract, you have a dispute between a policyholder and the guy who gives the insurance. So what we are building is a system that can resolve all of those disputes. I mean, you can just outsource your dispute resolution to Kleros, and Kleros gives you back the decision. And this has lots of use cases, and so happy to be here.
Babakar Ensek, I'm the founder and CEO of Petal Group. We are promoting since a couple of years what Raphael was presenting as ethical finance. So we try to innovate the way that finance is performed today by taking this unique opportunity of the Web3 and the disintermediation that this involves to create a new environment where an investor can invest at the speed of light very quickly, but also directing their investment into the value creation, real value creation. And we are building our business model around what we call tokenizations, and we are promoting this on a very enthusiastic way with a lot of ecosystem involved. Thank you. And we'll be sharing why we are building this within our community, but also explaining how it is important to build something that can be sustainable over the time and not just creating a one-shot deal. Thank you.
Hello, thank you to you and to the Web3 Foundation for being here. I'm Yann Lefloc. I'm a former investment banker during around 15 years. Working on digital money for around 20 years now, when I discovered especially the future of money of Bernard Lietaer. It was around 20 years ago. So I work on digital money during different years with different adventures, even before Bitcoin. And I finished my career in bank in the blockchain lab of BNP Paribas concerning the topic of crypto and blockchain. And now I'm independent banker for around 5 years, still active in crypto ecosystem, Web3 ecosystem, working with different governments, and also working for a startup called Trax, proposing a crypto index for institutional investors. And so happy to carry on the discussion put in it by Raphael Rossello, how to avoid chaos.
Thank you. I am very happy to be there. Thank you very much, David Smith, for the invitation. And I am chair of Scientific Council of Logion, and I am searcher. I am lecturer in Sciences Po, Paris, and I am lawyer on mediator. So, and I am specialized in new governance and in future of justice.
Super, thank you. So, as Raphael Rossello pointed out, let's say that we may think that the current system is maybe, I don't know, showing signs of an economic, social, and financial system maybe on its last legs. So, with the emergence of the Web3, we've got a lot of enthusiasm. And people were saying, okay, we're going to revolutionize everything. But today we've got a lot of critics of the Web3 trends, saying more it's something with speculative and secure assets, things like that. So today we are going to look how this Web3 economy is maybe the foundations for a more fundamental transformation, and we're going to discuss it together with each of your points of view, what I think has real value. So We're going to discuss about the law, the economy and the finance, of course, of money, justice, and human competencies. So maybe for starting, Babacar, as an entrepreneur in critical communication systems for the defense sector, you were involved, and you're involved today in tokenization. So maybe you could rapidly go through what you're doing today at Petal Group and explain us what it is to build some Web3 solid infrastructure today.
Yeah, actually what we are trying to achieve is first of all being one of the biggest fintech companies in France that will grow over the Europe, and then we expect to dominate the world, and I would say to do it in the same way than the big tech in US has been perfectly executing their growth. And for that, we have to structure our positioning and also to be part of these new revolutions we call Web3. And the strategic approach we have taken is to consider that crypto was a great innovation the last 10 years. So this is something we have observed, having an ecosystem that have growth with a lot of technical innovation and a lot of trading systems and a lot of index that investors were using is a great opportunity. So we should not ignore that crypto was a great revolution, and it is always a great revolution. And now there is a new challenge for crypto is getting into these adoptions, the massive adoptions. Okay, and from my previous experience when I was doing cryptography for aerospace, I have built up companies that grows to 12 millions of euro in valuation. And I was thinking that it was my money at the time. When it was the time for selling the company, it was not the same amount I have used for discussing. And I really understand what Raphael was explaining, that having big valuation is not the criteria for success evaluation. It's not because we have big figures that liquidity is there, okay? And we have the feeling that the crypto industry have a lot of liquidity and they have a lot of projects, but they have to find utility. Until now, we have a lot of people that was doing trading, that was gaining a lot of money, would say, or valuation. But when it's come to having this success connecting to the real life of people, we did not see the output. We did not see people just say, okay, I have power building with my crypto and I have put my children into a good education system based on my crypto. I mean, we need to connect what we gain with the crypto with the real world, okay? And this is the mission of Petal, is to enabling any investor to use the same process they use for crypto for investing into the real economy. So that's why we have developed a set of tools like a crypto, which is the security token, and then we have created different systems that the different investor can, of course, use. And then they will be holding a digital asset on their hand with MetaMask, or I would say any sovereign custody system, and then invest in the real economy. So this is what we try to achieve. And by doing that, we believe that there is a very big place for law to be applied, because as a private company, every time we process a transaction, we are taking a liability there, and we have to be sure that there is an arbitrage system or resolution system or whatever. Maybe my colleagues will develop there, but Petal is a new ecosystem for Web3 fund to be invest in the real economy, and we are building this day by days and building trust. So this is what we do, and we do it using the technology that Ethereum and Polkadot and Bitcoin has developed. It's the same, based on decentralized network, and then we build up the community and the trust But yeah, ParisDOT is doing very well, but as we are sharing today with them. Yeah, so this is what we do, and we are very curious to see how the legal can help to make this type of project sustainable.
Thank you, Rebecca. Jan, maybe as a former banker, interested in naturally the digital money, I've got a little provocative question maybe. How can programmable money save the world? Oh, not necessarily save the world at least, but let's just say, how can it drive really great transformation?
No, it's an interesting question. But maybe it's interesting to get in mind the history of crypto and Web3 ecosystem. At the origin, there were different people wanted to challenge a classical banking and financial system to complete it. That's the financial system that Raphael put ahead a few minutes ago. And the idea was to share value and share power via Bitcoin and all we saw after. So today, how to save the world, I'm going to answer it. But today, the Web3 and crypto ecosystem is plenty of paradox in a way. Because Raphael put ahead that there is economic growth with GDP. Growth in GDP, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% a year. And today, and 20 years ago, in the world that Raphael was describing, there were some criticized because funds, hedge funds, were looking for 10, 20% of rentability each year. It's not economically, you can't carry on such a process on the long term. And today, in Web3 ecosystem, fully of very valuable technologies and development and projects. But you have a spirit of 10, 15% rentability per month, in a way. So it has to remind us that we have to be connected to reality, economic reality, to avoid too important leverage effect. And that's what Petal tried to build in a way. And if you want to be able, via crypto and smart contracts and Web3 to come back to reality, you have to use probably a human brain. And that's what Sabine is going to put ahead. I mean, the reality is that if we want to be closer to economy and to reality and to avoid big bubbles and big crises and whatnot, violent crises, we have to be close to reality. And the first reality in our world is human people. Blood and flesh, as you told Raphael. So it can change the world, but we have not to forget what was the initial promise. I have a friend and colleague, this little stuff, but then I stop. A French colleague, he spent 10 years in Lehman Brothers, 10 years in Goldman Sachs around. So the bad banker, worse than Raphael. And his father was one of the governors of one of the big central banks in Europe, awful guy. And he told me one day, but you know, Jan, crypto ecosystem is worse than classical finance. Don't consider it as a strict analysis, but just get in mind that we have not to forget the real humanity, the real life, the real nature beyond our promise of wealthy life, to sum up.
Thank you. Federico, as an economist originally from a country that has experienced political and economic instability, maybe your point of view will be really valuable too. So how do you think that we can succeed in creating, let's say, a truly democratic regime built on individual liberty, independence of justice, all of this with money tools?
Well, so Raphael's speech was very, meaningful to me because I'm from Argentina, right? So what Raphael is predicting will happen in Europe already happened in Argentina, right? So this is what happened. This is a country that was quite rich, it became poor because of lots of reasons that maybe we don't need to discuss now, but what I saw when I started is, so I actually used crypto. I mean, I used crypto because it solved a practical problem for me, because I couldn't, be paid. If you do some work for other countries, you couldn't be paid by the banking system because capital controls, high taxes and all that. There's lots of people in Argentina that they were already educated through, many of them through the internet. They learn how to code, for example, or how to design. And they have skills that they could sell to other countries, but they couldn't be paid. Crypto gave us the opportunity, okay, now you can educate yourself, work hard, learn, offer something useful, and then now with crypto you could be paid. But there was another problem. A client from Paris would not hire some developer from Argentina if there is no dispute resolution. That system that will be able to make sure that if the guy doesn't comply with what they say they will do, there's a recourse. And that was my motivation to start building what I'm doing now. It was like a way to make a world, if you want, more meritocratic, right? For people who, were born in Argentina and they were unlucky in that sense, in the sense that you couldn't have access to a lot of things. So for me, the meaning of justice inclusion was include people in the world system where if you're good, great, and then you can, but your fate in life would not depend on where you were born. That was the main motivation.
Thank you. Yeah, we will come back on this subject just after that, but to continue, maybe Sabine, as a doctor in law, an expert in Web3, so what is your vision of the issues at stake today?
My vision. Today, I think our vision, yes. Today, I think that we are in political chaos, as Raphael said, and we are political chaos with a big tech platform too, because we forced today to delegate our security, our sovereignty to private hand. And in theory, I think that the GAFAM model is the peak of digital market liberalism. And I think definitely that in theory, the blockchain revolution could help to regulate this crisis of democracy. Value must stop being confiscated by a free, and technology must enable us to organize this horizontal society. For the moment, we want to share with DAO, with smart contract, with token, meaning new contributive economy, as Babacar say, new social contracts, but we must admit too that Web3 has not succeeded for the moment to implement this digital economy. And I think definitely that tech environment is forgetting the basic of democracy. We are forgetting, for me, the pillar of the rule of law. I think that we have to integrate the rule of law in the principle in tech environment that I think that I call it the digital constitutionalism model. That is, I think, the only way to guarantee the legal protection of your right in neutral and independent way. And in HAD, digital constitutionalism model is compatible with the European Union institution because it's based on the rule of law. And I think it's exactly the spirit of Laurence Lessig when he says code is law. I think that he said no thought is more dangerous to the future of liberty in cyberspace than the faith in freedom guaranteed by the code. I think code is law is an alert. And definitely we must build an alliance between democracy and new technology. And I think that all the partner is here to build a new alliance and to avoid digital feudalism. Bear in mind that the choice of technology, it's a choice of political model. And I think definitely that what do you want, authoritarian model or democracy? Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe a more, let's say, global question. Maybe if this one is for you, sorry, Ian, and maybe this one is for you too, Federico. Do you think that cryptocurrencies are really going to disrupt the established ecosystem? Because as Raphael was saying, the classic ecosystem of finance isn't going to go away, just vanish. Oh. So do you think really cryptocurrencies today or in the next years are going to be adopted?
So I begin for the union of the Web3. I think it can, technically it can, it could, but there is really a political momentum needed for it. Not only viral use, not only, capitalistic investments and propagation of different uses. Blockchain, crypto ecosystem during the last years was probably a little bit too focused on rentability and financial growth, even if it's a good stuff to create trust in a goodwill crypto asset, and a little bit less on the fundamentals of the crypto ecosystem, which used to be to create, I would say, a complementary financial ecosystem. We can remember the project of Bernard Lietaer, for example, pushed by Bernard Lietaer in 2017-18, Bancor, which were based, for example, on his ideas of distributed regional currencies, distributed sectorial currencies, yin-yang currencies. Some currencies has to be built on scarcities, others has to be built on more flexibility, more I would say, feminine approach, economic approach. So the yin-yang approach of currencies today is probably not totally, I would say, pushed by the crypto ecosystem. It's really a very aggressive and masculinism a way to do business and economy for me. Of course, it's a caricature to tell this, but it's a kind of reality in terms of philosophy, I would say. And so I think it could change, it could challenge, but I think that the CBDC on my side and the classical financial system has probably also a role to play in what Raphael was putting ahead before. No, not a uniformized system, not something this or that, but a diversity of different philosophies, different currencies, and different use of money in our world, in a way.
I mean, in some sense, for us from South America, it already happened. I mean, the guy who sells vegetables and fruits, like near my house in Buenos Aires, I mean, he already, you can pay in Bitcoin. I mean, I paid to him in Bitcoin, and not now, like 5 years ago. I mean, this is not new. And now the guy has cryptocurrencies in his wallet, and then he has access to, I mean, investment opportunities that were only reserved, for the ultra elite of Argentinians, the 1% that could have brokers or, investment in, stock markets. Now the guy has the same opportunity to invest his hard-earned Bitcoin or Ether through, DeFi apps. So again, it's up to him. He can educate himself. He can learn about finance. And he has to bear the risk of doing investment. That's also the negative element there. It's these people who are, having these opportunities to access the financial markets for the first times in their lives. They don't have a financial education. They never had any access to any of that, and sometimes they get too much involved, and they end up losing what they don't have. So, but for sure, this is already happening, and I see this, every day in my hometown.
Thank you. Babacar, maybe, do you think that the tokenization of assets could improve the existing system? And I guess yes, so how?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Just maybe to jump on the previous question quickly, I think that the cryptocurrency industry have already disrupted the financial market, the financial industry, the legacy financial industry in several ways. The first is they have pushed them to move into the technology and what we call the decentralization. And because decentralization is just a question of having a network of machines that approve a transaction, and we use this functionality since years and years when we use our mobile phone and we get the positioning and get our prepay functionality, And so, and the banks are currently moving into having their platform using the decentralization, which is good because this will force them to go into the disintermediation, which is very costly today. If you have to pay like 100,000 euro you want to invest, and you have one guy in the middle that say, oh, you have to pay me 10%, and I will give you the best opportunity where you are gonna win 11%. Are you going to invest on that? Because you are gonna win only 1%, okay? This is what happens when you have so many intermediaries within your financial transaction deals. And the good of decentralization of machine, I would say, not the organization, of machine is they will optimize the way that financial transactions are performed today when it's come to investing money and creating value. And this is the first thing for which cryptocurrency have pushed out the financial industry just to start creating, innovating in the technology field, okay? The second is how we do business. Because if you remember, when we have to borrow money during our life, even for paying the studio of our children or just going on holiday or buying a house, the first thing that the bank requests is to have a visibility on your what they call patrimoine, your legacy, or the amount of money that you hold, okay? And today, there are a lot of mechanisms that DeFi, which is the decentralized finance, bring to the market, which is you don't need to divulgate all your patrimoine, between bracket in French, or just what we say, the amount of, the level of richness you have to be able to make a transaction, okay? So the DeFi is making the transaction more transparent, but also confidential, and more quick and addressable as a market, and not a lot of bureaucracy, okay? So this is the second disruption that cryptocurrency industry is putting into the way that we do finance. And a lot of my friends are borrowing money on the protocol directly using crypto, and then they reimburse, and then they pay back the protocol, and you can see that those transactions had been performed by banks for several centuries, okay? And it's the same service at the end, but you have to pay less because it's a protocol and it's people. But at PayPal, we believe that tokenization is, and the third disruption, of course, is the tokenization, because every money that have been put into the protocol had been done in the process of tokenization. When you take €1 or £1 or whatever US dollar, you want to buy a DOT or an Ethereum, you put real money on the protocol, right? And there is no artificial money within the crypto. This is very important to mention, because people that are part of I would say, the traditional finance thinks that all this bubble is artificial, but this is real money that came into the protocol. Of course, there are a lot of people that win a lot of money when they do a good trade, but there are a lot of people that lose money as well. but the money at the beginning just get from the legal money into those protocols. So the tokenization as a theory is just what we call in the past the titrization. And the titrization was a way, in the legal terminology, to share of an asset using just a new legal regime. It's a contract. It's a contract for which you say, okay, you and me and my friend are sharing this building, and we put this ownership into a paper. But for that, we need to do a titrization operation with the legal department before and the authority. And that is the theoretical aspect of tokenization, is using the law enforcement and the law definition to create a regime. And this is what we do at PETAL. Every time we take an asset as a classification asset that we want to promote, we start by creating the legal framework for that asset, and then we do the risk assessment. And of course, there is an adoption phase we will gonna face in the coming month, but the important is we understand how to work. The more difficult today to do is to understand how to do tokenization. For money, it is easy because it's a swap. You put money, you get the token. But when it gets to real world asset, then it's more complicated because you are swapping money with something that is already respecting the law in the codex of law. Yeah. Thank you.
So speaking about sharing things, maybe a more global question about the, let's say, the public sector. How do you see, it's a really global question for every one of you if you want to answer. How do you see the, let's say, how can the public sector help foster the development of the innovations, particularly into the Web3 space?
I mean, it's quite amazing to see so many projects every day being launched. There is plenty of technology, of innovative projects in different fields that are putting ahead. Polkadot is one of this ecosystem. But I think it's key to get in mind that to realize a project, you need capital on one way or other, or currencies, or classical fiat money, or cryptocurrencies. And maybe the initiatives are really great, but the momentum to finance them is a key question. What I would say is that it's a fantastic technological ecosystem, but we need to be careful probably to be not too sensitive to yield and wealth targets. I think it's key not to forget the seed of your project. It has to be technical, social, economical. It's probably key, and during this day a lot of people build the link, the bridge between reality and real people and Web3 ecosystem, and I think it's probably key. And I would say also, related to this topic, that it's important probably to build a kind of democracy of money and not a moneycracy. Because what we see with proof of stake sometimes can have the taste of such an approach. Well, of course, technically it's quite difficult to solve this kind of approach, but it's probably key not to build, yes, it's key to build democracy, and that's probably what Sabine could put ahead via his idea of democratic digitalism.
Yes, thank you, Yann. Yes, I think that it's a revolution of the law too. It's a revolution of economic model, but it's a revolution of the law too, to implement the theory of a new contributive model and to maybe to integrate that law can be able to give to them a new model. I explain. I don't believe in the perfect application of with the code on program. I don't think that will be perfect. I think definitely that that will be dangerous. I speak about dangerous governing machine that don't understand, the machine don't understand what they does, what they calculate. So I think that we must avoid delegating our power to complex system and to calculate system and to few people controlling it. I believe we can build together a digital constitution by smarter, decentralized architecture with human. I think that human in the loop is very, very important. And we have to think and build with a really different mindset, as Raphael say. Be sure that I am fully committed by building this new world for democracy and individual freedom. Yeah.
Federico, maybe.
Maybe just add that it's also important to have in mind that in the end, all of the projects need to solve real world problems. And sometimes, people want to do blockchain and Web3, but I mean, you start by the problem, I think, and then you see if Web3 is a solution, because maybe it's not a solution. It's, as they say, if you think everything is a nail, So for me, the way to start is to see a problem and then you see if a DAO or a protocol would be a solution for that. Because otherwise, what end up happening, I think, in Web3 is that we have two profiles of people in general, or that's what people see from the outside. Either, the degen traders that are in this for the quick buck, or then the programmers who are actually building it, but they don't communicate that much because it's not maybe their skills or it's not their interest. They just love the technology. So I think that if we can, prove to the world that we are solving important problems, as I see them being solved in Argentina and other places, I mean, that would be a big step forward for the industry.
And how do you see this, let's say, apparent trend of decentralization, but as you mentioned, the transformation of this apparent decentralization is something that is more like a plutocracy, but on-chain, with some sort of non-apparent consortium that are leading the developments of some foundational project. So how do we deal with this type of things?
I mean, I think that every project starts in a centralized way and then starts decentralizing. We had, at Kleros, we built a product called Proof of Humanity, and we made an experiment. What happens if we start decentralizing this from the beginning, like one person, one vote, like radical democracy experiment? I mean, let me tell you something, it didn't work. It got full of trolls and conflict and stuff. So I think decentralization is a great goal to reach, and it's important for people to actually trust that these applications are going to not become a new version of Web 2, right? Because we don't want to reinvent big tech. But I mean, it works better to start centralized and progressively decentralized as you create new governance institutions. We are like, the 18th century, French Revolution or federalists in the United States. That they didn't know how to create a modern democracy and a big-scale democracy. All the experience we had were like the Greek, but smaller kind of a setting. So I think there is lots to experiment. And now we have more tools, but also more challenges. Now, I mean, imagine when an AI tool starts to attack a system of governance and by making fake profiles, fake votes. I mean, we don't even know what's going to happen in the next 5 years in governance. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I do believe that the political system, we're going to use the best of this Web3, because we are talking about financial implication here, but at the end of the day, that this will gonna touch the real life of people, their political opinion, how they want their city to be managed. We have seen a lot of applications that will gonna come where the city management center, like we call the mairie or administration, we're gonna just use Web3 interface or an existing blockchain and ask people for contributing a local voting system, for instance. We know that this is already in place in some country in the world, like in Miami, they are using this case, and Switzerland also is using this for doing local voting system. So the Web3 spirit is just putting the intermediary out of the game, and this will gonna apply for democracy. They will gonna apply for any time there is a possibility for making the process more efficient than using an intermediary in the middle, you know. Yeah.
About the virus of revolution in France and technology. I mean, which is clear is that there is a question of primary capital. Primary capital was gold during centuries. Then it became fiat, and with the insurance of central banks based on gold. And which is interesting is in crypto is that at the beginning there were a distribution of mining with an equal capability to produce primary gold, digital gold, and primary value. Today, it's a bit different because the crypto market is really biased in a way, for good or bad reasons, by initial capital, primary capital. So we are a little bit far from, on some point of views, on the initial philosophy. So there is still some question about it. I think that probably democracy and traditional democracy or traditional banking system also could answer to this question. That's also a problematic we know in traditional financial system. But the question of how we create capital, how we share it, why it's distributed, for which projects, for me it's still a key question. All the technology developed by Web3 ecosystem and the crypto ecosystem should answer to this question, but I think that at this stage it's not totally realized, but it should be time after time probably. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe Sabine for the, let's say, the last word for this first Fury panel. What are the main legal and ethical challenges associated with the emergence of the Web3?
That's an easy one.
Pretty easy and funny, so.
Federico, vas-y.
I have no idea. Please, no, you start.
Yeah, I think there is the problem with. I mean, there is no problem with Web3 actually, because Web3 is just a new possibility we can use. If there is a problem that can happen with Web3 in terms of ethical, it will be just about what happens when there is a problem. Who is going to fix the problem? Today, if I have a problem with someone using my contract, I go to the legal process that the country put in place for me. But when you are under digital environment and you deal with contract and people and wallet, and sometimes you even don't know who is behind the investment, the wallet, and then you get in trouble because there is no international digital legislations that apply for the creating problem, and I think this is the main big problems we can have as an operational problem. That have to be fixed is how to solve a problem with arbitrage or just this mediation in France. And in terms of ethical, of course, in tokenization, we have declared within our company that everything that is illegal, we will not gonna enter into the tokenizations of that asset, like drugs or even human person cannot be tokenized. We have decided to not do that type of things, you know, because this is ethical things. The other thing is in terms of impact, we are committed to do ethical finance. That means when we do a financial operation or we do financial forecasting or strategic positioning, we always have on the back of our mind that we are creating good for the society. we are not creating value for a portion of the population without not impacting the other portion. So we try to be balanced there. So that's why within our organization and our strategic planification, we believe that there will be a lot of fund that will be available for investing into the well-being of people, of cities, paying tax, making the good balance of everything we do. This is what the United Nations is calling the sustainable growth, of course, and then we are committed for that. Yeah.
And to add, I want to do a citation of Laurence Lessing. Laurence Lessing was not considering the challenge of cyber regulation on the disappearance of regulation or trusted third party, but on the issue of architecturing cause-based system with respect to individual sovereignty and protection against private interest of coder.
Super, thank you everyone. So it will be having the last word for this roundtable. We will make a little break and just see after that for the second part of this roundtable. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, as Gregory said, Hello, hello. Where are you people? Let's start again with still the topic about the chaos. So, this is the second part of the workshop and the panel discussion. So here we have still Grégory Guittard from Journal du Coin, who will still moderate the panel, and I'll let him present the panelists today. So the stage is yours, Grégory.
Thank you. Okay, so we will continue for the second part of the roundtable about the avoiding chaos again. So let's do that second time. So maybe just to, as for the first, to put some context, maybe if each panelist could introduce themselves again, maybe starting from you, please.
So, hi everybody, I am Marlene Ricard, partner at Deloitte, specialized in blockchain and Web3, and member of our worldwide digital asset council. I have 20 years of experience, mainly in risk and regulatory topics, and I discovered blockchain 7 years ago. So I had the opportunity to accompany more than 50 clients, both startups and big corporates in the financial sector, but not only, and mainly in France, but a little bit also abroad.
Thank you. Hi, Babacar Ensek, founder and CEO of Petal Group. Our company is developing an infrastructure, platforms that enable investment on blockchains through real-world asset. We are developing these projects since a couple of years, and we are focusing on several use cases for tokenization, and we're going to detail those tokenization opportunities that require a lot of expertise in terms of process, but also in terms of competencies. And we do this for creating, contributing to the creation of this new Web3 economy. And we do it on step-by-step basis, convincing investors, ecosystems, and also companies that doing audits and helping to secure those solutions.
Yann Le Floch, I'm a former money priest, to sum up, working for an investment bank in this religion of money we all know today, and wandering for around 20 years and working for around 20 years on alternative money, complementary money, and digital money. And I work for a company called Trax, proposing to institutional clients some potential investment in digital asset class.
Hello, I'm Federico. I am founder and CEO at Kleros. Kleros is a distributed solution system based on blockchain. The vision is to help resolve all of the disputes that are arising in the Web3 ecosystem.
Hi, nice to be there. And I am Sabine Van Eck Lepic, and I am chairman of the Logion Scientific Council. And I am lawyer, mediator, and specialist in new governance and future of justice in new technology.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Arthur. I'm working at EY Faber Novel, and I might be the degen of EY. I'm a bit of a dreamer. I wanted to thank you, David, for having me here today. I've had the chance to work with Logion around the digitalization of a piece of art, and I truly believe in the power that the tools that we will be talking about today are putting in the hands of the consumer and the internet user. And I thank you for the panel just before. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm truly convinced that when we find the value in the disintermediation and we give back the value, and we find a new creation tools to give back the value to the consumer and to the stakeholders that are not only the shareholders, but also the planet, the society, the employees, we will maybe avoid chaos and change the world.
Definitely.
Thank you. Okay, so for the next, let's say, 40 minutes, we will go through a sample of use cases that are trying to change the things, to create a new systemic change in existing models based on blockchain, of course, and the Web3 ecosystem. So maybe the best way to discuss about it is to go through project to project. So let's start maybe with you, Babakar. So you know my question. What are you doing today with the tokenization that really is changing the game?
Yeah, when we talk about tokenization, we are assessing the different opportunity that can be handled efficiently in terms of value creation. So we had been focusing on first about how can we tokenize a real world asset. So this was the first question we were trying to solve the last couple of years. And we very quickly, we have faced with difficulties of facing with, we call innovation resistance. Every time we talk with expertise and talking about real estate, for instance, we face with people that have expertise for years and years that told us it is not possible to tokenize anything on real estate. And we say, okay, we're going to take the challenge and try to solve the problems. And this is what we did at the end of our learning process and research. The second thing is when we change an asset class, then you take another asset class, like let's take gold. You take the same problem, you try to identify how you can tokenize gold. The first thing is you face the problem of licensing, of trading gold is limited to companies that have the license. And then when you buy gold and you want to retail gold, it's very difficult because you face with the physical handling of the stock and the security of all the stuff. And then you can change also go into the art and luxury product like painting. And in that case, you have also different legal framework that apply. So, and then you have to solve the problem. So at the end of the day, it was for us first about understanding how we can tokenize an asset. So what we did is we did a classification of different type of asset class that we can handle. And we come up with 27 asset class on our company. And within those 27 asset class, we decide to focus only on 4 at the beginning of our ventures. And this is what we are doing today. We are able today with our process to tokenize real estate, to tokenize commodities like cereal. We announced last year a deal of 100 million euro of cereal currently under tokenization process with Petal. We are still working with 2,000 agricultures in France through what we call a consortium of producers to structure this deal with them, with the help of big bankers in France. So this is a long venture where the how is always taking place is how can we tokenize, and we were focusing about the methodology and the process to build up those different, we're going to talk about later on those use case particularly, but at Petal our job is to understand how we can do the securitization of a tokenization from a technical point of view, legal point of view, and a business point of view.
Okay, thank you, Babakar. Maybe, Jan, this one is for you. Sorry, we discussed what your point of view on the digital currencies, changing the way we were carrying out economical exchanges, things like that. So you're working at Trax. Maybe you could explain us a little bit what Trax is about and what you're doing.
So Trax is a more traditional company in the blockchain and crypto ecosystem. It was founded by Lionel Rebibo and Laurent Barocas, who are my boss in the company. And the idea of Trax was to told, okay, for each of us, it's quite easy to buy crypto, to buy a ledger, to go on an exchange, to realize a KYC. But for some institutional investors, it's a complicated process. or for somebody who is 60, 70 years old and who would like to invest in such an asset class. It seems stupid in the Web3 ecosystem, such an approach, but it's a reality for investors. So some people consider as an asset class, a new asset class, an alternative asset class, which are cryptos. It's quite difficult to enter physically because you have to do a lot of different process. Just for example, the ledger with 24 hours to hide something somewhere, sorry, for some people it's frightening, which we can understand and respect. For some of us it's exciting, but anyway. So the idea of Trax was to tell to institutional, private banks, family office, little insurance, mutuals, to have an access, a direct access via a third counterparty, which is Trax, to invest in this asset class. The idea behind Trax is to propose to the client all the value chain from investment to the custody of the crypto, even if, of course, we don't do it directly and we use other providers. But it's key because a lot of financial institutions, major or small financial institutions, need some third counterparties to invest in digital assets and cryptos because they believe in the future value of cryptos. And about future value of cryptos on medium term, I'm not talking about daily, weekly, monthly trading, which is another approach. But if you want to a macro approach on crypto and you consider that it's a good asset to diversify your portfolio for insurance, for mutuals, for whatever, on medium term, 5 years, 10 years, I think that mathematically it can be a very good asset class because the experience of... I was talking about this not far from here with a 80 years old mathematical researcher in Collège de France. I was surprised. I was tired, I sit with a friend in the area. It was around 1 year ago. And the guy began to ask us what we could do we was doing in life. And he was a mathematician in Collège de France. And he began to give us, he was around 80 years old, his view on Bitcoin value. And his way to analyze it is that if it goes up, the value goes up on medium term around 100%. If it goes down, it will be 50%. So the mathematical experience is 50%. So for him as a mathematician, on medium long term, it's a good asset class to invest. There is other bad points for Bitcoin or all this class of assets, but that's what the promise of Trax to say some people could have an interest to invest in such asset class, and we want to propose them to by an easy way to get in for institutions, for wealth, and that's what we do in Trax. We are regulated by AMF and Banque de France, of course. So we were part of the first PSAN in France, and we work with the whole Europe, and that's the idea. So it's not revolutionary, but it's a way to give liquidity also to all the technology we know here, and of course we can propose Polkadot and DOT in our baskets.
Fantastic, you offer me a superb transition, so thank you. Maybe a question for you, Marilyn, and the same question for you, Arthur, about the, let's say, the perspective of the traditional economy, so it can be big firms, traditional system, things like that, about the potential move to the Web3 ecosystem. How do you see it evolving today with your clients, with people you're talking to? And you were speaking about institutions, so what is your stance on this subject?
Je vous en prie.
Okay, so what I can say is that since blockchain, I totally dedicated my career to this topic. So for sure, I'm fully convinced that the perspectives are huge, and also because this technology, the technology underlying this topic, is totally fractal and multifaceted. So that's why I see a lot of things behind, and of course I see companies moving, startup developing, and also Web3 companies going to Web3. We have done recent surveys at Deloitte, and I take my notes because I'm not very good with numbers. The survey was saying that 3/4 of the respondents think that digital assets will replace or be a stronger alternative to fiat currency in the next 5 or 10 years. And more recently, we conducted a survey with Conhouse, so it was a focus in France, and 2/3 of the respondents answered that they have organized or plan to organize a training session around Web3 in the next future. So in both cases, the numbers are huge, and it demonstrates the potential of this blockchain-based business. Now about what has changed. Well, despite the chaos of the 2 last years, I'm 3 years. I'm talking about the crisis, the health crisis, of course, the FTX crisis, etc. So although, despite that, many things have changed, and we have seen a big phase of acceleration of the adoption of Web3, both for startups and for corporates. As an example, Petal, and I had the chance to work for Petal. It's a French crypto native player, and really Petal has bloomed like a flower during the last 2 years. So 2 years is very quick. And during this period, we also have seen major traditional players such as BNP Paribas, Société Générale, Crédit Agricole. My examples are in France, sorry. But they also have launched their own tokenization platform. So definitely, tokenization is spreading all over the world. And I think it's because today, the direction taken by history is that we have moved from a consumer society, a society of consumers, to a society of users. And these users need more and more flexibility and ultra customization, I would say. And this is exactly what Petal offers. I mean, you can choose how much you want to invest, and you can choose the projects in which you want to invest. So, from my point of view, tokenization is really the answer. And now about Deloitte, what are we doing in this ecosystem? What role do we play? Well, the DNA of Deloitte or other big fours are the trust. And what we do is also bringing trust in this new society, bringing trust in Web3, for instance, when we assess and when we review a product or solution designed by a startup, such as Petal, before they launched the solution on the market. So we give assurance to the whole ecosystem. We are also financial auditors for startup in Web3. And we are also helping our traditional clients to, by training or by building proof of concept or etc., helping them to also to build a solution or tokenization platform in their company. So what we do is building bridges between Web 2 and Web 3, and help these two worlds, because it's not one world against another, but we help these two worlds to work together. So trust and together are, I think, the two key words describing Web3.
Thank you. So you mentioned something I think is interesting. It's the ultra customization. So maybe you're speaking more of creation of a more community-centric economy. So I will switch back to this question to you, Arthur. What do you think of this potential community-centric future?
I think, and to answer also your previous question, and maybe the discussion of the how to avoid chaos, I think you have to imagine how terrifying it can be for a corporate to talk about Web3, because it concerns every seat around the XCOM team, every C-level. The CFO, he has to understand, or she has to understand how to accept crypto payment, how to pay people in crypto maybe. You are talking about it, Federico. I won't do them all, but the CEO has to understand it, the CDO has to understand it, the CEO, compliance officer has to understand it. So that's where indeed, and I totally agree with what you said, the trust that are brought by, I try to be the ambassador of Web3 into Web2 corporate companies, the trust we have to bring to help them understand that they can go and deliver themselves the value that I hope they can deliver. I think the way to do that is for companies and corporates to become software companies and to be the platforms that are developing the tools for the community, for the users to empower themselves. And maybe if the added value for the whole community, the whole ecosystem is enough, then you can have part of that value, of course. But the idea is not to take value just because you are gathering data, being a tech company, for example.
Federico, maybe to continue on this community discussion. So you're from leading Kleros. So you said it's decentralized arbitration protocol. So for the conflict resolution. So maybe you could explain us how it works on the ground and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So people are building lots of Web3 applications that are meant like to at some point maybe replace the Web2 companies like YouTube, eBay, Facebook. So if we are right about what we are building at some point in the future, maybe not in 1 year, maybe in 5 or 10, we will have most of our interactions in decentralized internet platforms, let's say. There is one thing that most of these will have in common, that they will have disputes between users. Let's say you are building e-commerce, like kind of eBay Web3 platform, and then you have disputes between buyers and sellers. You are building a kind of YouTube platform, and then you will have disputes over copyright infringement between people who upload videos and owners of the copyright. You will have, this type of disputes also applies to, for example, NFTs. I upload an NFT, and it was made by Sabine, and she said, "You're stealing my work," right? So, you have lots and other use cases. I don't want to bore you with all of the use cases, but there are other applications in content moderation, insurance, finance, and the metaverse. So either the team that is building the platform will resolve them, which is not decentralized, or they build a dispute resolution system do, and it's not the core business. The core business is to make their platform. What they could do is they can outsource or delegate resolution of disputes to a specialized agent like Kleros. So they plug into Kleros. There is a dispute between users. This goes to Kleros. Kleros selects a panel of jurors through crowdsourcing, very specific economic incentives, and in order for the jurors not to be biased, not to be bribed, and other elements to make it, trusted and secure. And then they produce a decision, and this decision is then enforced in the platform that sent the dispute, right? So it's a service, if you want, system for all of these new Web3 platforms that are emerging these days.
And how do you overcome the potential of the classical arbitration?
Oh, how many times do we... So Kleros uses a very specific mechanism based on economic incentives, based on the idea of shelling points. Because in the internet, when we started Kleros, for example, we didn't have an online identity system that you could use to know if some person was only, I mean, you can draw a number of jurors. How do you know that more than one of these jurors is not the same person or is not one of the parties? Since there was no ID system, the only way to create the right incentives was to use another economic model where you have to use a token that you have to stake, and this token is like you know, a lottery ticket that gives you the right to be drawn in the cases in the court where you want to work. So kleros means randomness in Greek, and the system is a bit inspired in how the ancient Athenian court used to work, you know, popular trials. So kleros draws randomly, let's say 3 jurors from all of those who made the stake of the token, and then these jurors will analyze the case and they will vote on the case, and they will be rewarded or penalized depending if their vote agrees with the majority or not. So this is, in a nutshell, how it works.
Thank you. Super interesting. Sabine, maybe because you're leading the Logium network. I think, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but you would tell me. So it's legal protection of tokens. If I try to summarize it, maybe you could tell us a little more about it.
Yes, I am mentioned earlier in part 1 that is very important to preserve democracy to avoid chaos. And with the Logion project, the objective is to insert pillar of democracy at the heart of Web3 transaction. And it's a new legal model, creative legal model, because I think it's a layer 1 or bis, because Kleros is a layer 1 for dispute resolution. So Logion is maybe layer 1 bis for the proof of law. But yes, I think I am talking, as you probably know, Logion has been created by David Schmidt, who is the creator of ParisDOT.comm, and also the creator of this event, and together with Stéphanie Flachet, Gérard, Elie, Benoît, Casey, Colin, and all the team. And what is exactly Logion? Okay, Logion is basically a blockchain infrastructure that provides to any token of any chain the protection of democracy. So Logion makes sure that your rights are protected with regard to the rule of law, because the infrastructure is monitored by both a decentralized and international network of legal officers and regulated professionals. So I think it's a big legal innovation, because the architecture of the platform and the nature of stakeholders make it possible to respect by design the separation of power and the necessary neutrality of interest. And I think definitely that it's a pure Web3 project with a non-proprietary technology monitored by stakeholders based on the Logion token. Yeah.
I have no part in Logion, but I truly believe in the project. And for those who are familiar with oracles, and one of the main problems of blockchain is that information that you put on blockchain is then secured, but you don't have the security part of the veracity of the information. So I can put a lie in a blockchain. And what I find very interesting on top of what you just said is that the legal officers are the oracles in Logion, the blockchain, and they secure the truth of information put in blockchain, and then it is secured by the layer 0, yeah, being blockchain.
And it's like Kleros. Kleros is Oracle too, no?
I mean, we are both in the business of trust, but I mean, Logion is more on the factual information of, you know, what is this document? Is this the real document or not? Kleros is more on what we call subjective oracle. It's about whether this complies with the rules of what was agreed in the contract. I mean, it's kind of both are oracles, but different types of oracles.
No, I just wanted to put ahead that sometimes developers and Web3 ecosystem forget human a little bit sometimes, and Logan and Kleros are here to give back human nodes to the distributed blockchain, and we often need it, and it's a real fantastic project from David Schmitz and all the team, Stephanie Flashen and so on, and it's key not to forget human, no matter what you code. Code is low, yes, but behind a code, it's like the language. A code is not just an informatical language. Behind a language, you can write good books, bad books, and such. It's perfectly key to have human people, enlightened people behind some nodes.
Yes.
And if I'm not divulgating secrets, we are at Petal working with Logion to see how we can incorporate this layer of truth on our process. And the idea is just building trust on top of what we are currently building. And we have find a lot of synergy and using this very innovative way, because behind a financial transaction, there is a commitment. Either it is a smart contract or a paper contract. On both cases, you have the law that is involved, and if you can automate that using an external blockchain, it's just an additional source of trust. So this is why we work on that. But yeah, it was a point I wanted to add on that.
Yeah, as you said, so we're speaking a lot about blockchain, Web3 technologies, and all the, let's say, the automation stuff. But let's say that in fact, the more important things is how do you build trust? And maybe this one is for you, Marilyn. The audit is really fundamental to all of this project. How do you deal with this uncertainty of veracity in the Web3 ecosystem?
Well, first, I base the audit on my intuition. It's always has been a question of intuition for me with blockchain. I remember when the CIO of another Big Four, I was part of another Big Four 7 years ago. He asked me, "But Marilyn, why do you think blockchain will have a tremendous success?" And I answered him, "Because I feel it. I can't explain it, but I have intuition on these topics, and of course, this intuition is based on all the assignments I have at Deloitte in the past, and colleagues all over the world. We are more than 2,000 blockchain believers, and we are very, very well connected. Blockchain doesn't know frontiers of countries. So it's we work together and we share experiences, really. More than 3 or 4 times a week. So it's a very deep work to be always one step ahead on this topic. And of course, with my intuition goes, and the experiences of everybody, goes strong methodology. We are Deloitte, so we have processes, build tools around Web3 to check counterparty transactions, etc., and strong audit methodologies. Because of course we help our clients to transform themselves, but we also transform ourselves and the way we make audit. And for sure, one use case of blockchain is around digital identity, digital certification, etc. So audit is evolving also in Big Fours.
Thank you. Maybe Arthur, you want to bounce on this one?
I just wanted to add that I think, despite the question of veracity of information and data put on blockchain or not, the question is accountability also. There is a stronger accountability of people, because you are the one putting information on the blockchain. You are signing it. You are then having transaction around it. So there is accountability. Despite the private part, there is transparency and there is accountability.
Yeah, if I can mention this, because we are in the process of filing our licensing in France at Pétal. So we are talking with the Banque de France, the ACPR, and the IMF. And we have seen that every time we address one of the topics that concern the licensing, the law aspect come every time. One of the example is the conflict of interest, for instance. As a company, when we propose an asset for being tokenized, during the due diligence of that asset, we have a lot of people and companies that are involved on that process. And one of the requirements of the authority is to be sure that there is no one that was on the process due diligence that contribute to the financial operation, which is a requirement of the all financial market. And the only way to handle that requirement on a very efficient basis without having bureaucracy is using external oracle like this to be sure that we can connect a wallet with a transaction and a third party that can approve, okay? Because we cannot be the company that developed the infrastructure, that handle the processing, that do the auditing, and so that's why this third party is very important when we for the financial market. And there is two ways of doing that. Either we do just a DeFi for which we are a decentralized organization and there is no legal implication of the token issuer, and then the market is just exchanging the asset. Or you are under legal framework like Pétal. We are in Paris, regulated by the European Union financial market. And in that case, you have to respect the rule of the financial market, which are a set of rules for which you just have to find a solution. So then having these to avoid KO, because KO, the guys, the founder also, because last week, I don't want to mention this company, but public bank in France, very big, that is just tackling a problem of conflict of interest publicly. And the CEO was obliged to explain that everything was clean, because the company processed this operation without not being compromised, okay? And when you come into the decentralization world, like the Web3, the same rule apply to all the company like Pétal that have to put on the market because when you sold a 5-star hotel using the platform like Pétal, it can sold out on 2 days, very quickly. And in that ways, you have to demonstrate that none of the subscriptor was not aware of the deal before, so you have to protect the deal before it's public. Yeah, and so you can see every time we need additional solution, external solution to be integrated, and additional process reviewer like Deloitte or EY or whatever to just contribute to the solution.
Thank you, Rebecca. Maybe Jan, you want to react?
Yes, I had just a point that I wanted to put ahead on tokenization. The main crypto assets are valued based on trust, only trust. Goodwill, trust, essential oil of trust. It's a new product, new financial product. It's very counterintuitive when you base an economy on cash flow. But for tokenization, it's probably key, and what we observe in ICO ecosystem in most of the projects is the lack of liquidity and the lack of capacity to defend value. And for this, and to come back to what Raphael Rossello was telling before, it's probably key to link the value of the assets to the real value, to the intrinsic value, and to the economic value at one point or others. And for this, we need specific exchange to correlate it, the real value, the economic value, the real world, and the financial world, the digital twins, as it's called. So it's probably key. And at this stage, the total free price is probably not totally adapted to tokenization of real economy. And I will remind, it's a cultural difference between different ecosystems, but I will remind that for bread, for example, in France, bread was defined by General de Gaulle after Second World War, or by Charlemagne by some rules defined by law. it's not communism, it's not planification, it's just a willing to use law to define an economic price to some stuffs. And I think that blockchain technology and Web3 and Polkadot also has all the capability to define some economic price to some essential goods. And especially in the current situation we know with inflation, it's probably important to get it in mind with tokenization phenomenon.
Yes, as you were saying, the traditional system isn't going away. So maybe, Marilyn, you wanted to react to something that Babacar said?
Yes. It was about the question of trust, and Babacar and Sabine were talking about alliances, and I think it's a key point in the Web3 ecosystem. It's something huge, and you can't build this ecosystem alone. So you have several startups or corporates creating solutions all over the world, and they need to connect, to work together. From my point of view, Web3 it's like three-dimensional puzzles. Okay, and what we see today is that this puzzle is appearing, and at Deloitte we love technology, but we don't build technological solution. So to build trust to our clients, we have also made strategic alliances. For instance, a technological one with Ledger. Ledger. It's also it's another successful French startup that design and sells wallet for crypto, both for individuals and professionals. But the mindset is the same. I mean, they bring transparency and security, etc. And that's why we made this strong alliance to bring better solutions to our clients.
This metaphor of Web3 as a puzzle, pretty cool. So maybe you want to react, Sabine?
Yes, I want to say that Logion is a bridge between the real world and the token in a decentralized je vais y arriver, way. The Logion is unique approach provide a robust solution for dispute resolution. Because in both traditional and blockchain context, it is important because tokenization will create new digital risk that need to be anticipated. And by combining the efficiency and transparency of blockchain with the nuance and expertise of human judicial officer, Logion is paving the way for more secure, trustworthy and fair future for tokenization on DeFi. I think it's the only way to preserve fundamental rights. And to conclude, I think that Logion gives birth a real living law by proposing, by design, a dynamic and constant regulation to maintain the constant rule of law at level without needing to have a new regulation for each new token. And it's what I say, dopage juridique. It's an innovation in the field of law that is adapted to this new technological environment where we need to remain close to the real world and the real life.
Thank you. I think that maybe we just got 2 minutes before the end of this roundtable. So a last question, because we are talking about avoiding chaos. So maybe what is your point of view about the future CBDCs that are really the major trends that we are seeing for the next year? So I don't know if one of you want to take the last word on this, and I guess it will be the last question for this panel. Thank you.
Maybe I think that for all technology, all project, the key stuff is the seed and the soul of the seed of a project. So CBDC can do good things or bad things. It will depend on the soul of the seed of these projects.
Yeah, we had the chance 2 weeks ago to be being part of the Paris Europlace, where we had the chance to challenge the vision of the governor of the Banque de France and to understand what is his view and his organization about this CDBC stuff. And he was very clear, and he mentioned that the ecosystem of the crypto is very dynamic, and tokenization is taking a very serious role on their studio. And he also indicate that the euro will be, portion of the euro will be tokenized through the CDBC process. And I think it's something that we have to take into account very seriously, because it will gonna happen, and the CDBC money will be distributed using this very strong organization of the different central banks that already work on that. And we have to be ready with the tokenization to be able to interconnect those initiatives with the initiative of the cryptocurrency industry. And for that, we have to take into account certain economic fundamental aspects that are very important, is, like as you mentioned, Jan, is how to price something, because we don't have to create a bubble for a building that costs, for instance, 4 million, and we bring this building to 40 million because just people are willing to buy the share of the building. So we have to stay on the ground, and for instance, creating models, economic models that enable a good pricing of asset and a good distribution of that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Federico, maybe the last word for you, your point of view on the CBDCs, because of your personal background, I think
I haven't made my mind about CBDCs yet. There is people who are really paranoid about this, and there is some reason in this, as a tool of social control, if you want. There is something of that. But on the other hand, money is already digital, under the form of CBDC or not, it's already digital. So maybe if this can help, onboard more people into crypto, I mean, why not? I mean, right? We are going to have more people having wallets and sending payments. So more people into crypto, and then they will choose what currency they want to use. So that's how. But as I said, I'm not yet convinced.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. You are a good timekeeper. Let's take a picture, very quick. Stay in the room. We have our last speakers in a few seconds. Let's go for a picture. Okay. Perfect, thank you. We can applaud them. They chained 2 panels. It's quite a difficult exercise. So now we will finish with the last speakers of today. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome him. So he's from Belgium. I think Belgium is well represented here in Paris. And so it's a pleasure to have Christophe de Beukelaar, Member of Parliament in Belgium. And so you will have the final words of today.
Thank you.
So please stay in the room, take a seat and enjoy.
I think I need a pointer.
Yeah.
No, you have it?
I think it's there. Here you go.
Excellent, merci. Hi everyone, for the courageous one that are still in the room, listening to this last speech. I'm Christophe de Beukelaar. I'm a Belgian member of Parliament, and I get to know a little bit in France because I took my salary in Bitcoin during all year 2022. And I'm here to explain a little bit why I did that political act and what brought me to have a little bit more interest in the crypto world and to trying to defend some point of view the crypto community is defending also in politics. So I have called this presentation Fairer Finance because that's really the point of view that brought me into crypto. It's the finance. Yes, voila. Yeah, that's the plan of the presentation, but we'll directly go to the diagnosis of a sick financial system. That was really, for me, a new point of view on finance. I was born in a family, quite wealthy family, so I never understood there was a problem with finance. It's only a few years ago when I was understanding better and talking to people that opened my eyes on what was going bad in the financial world. I think if you are here, you know it, but we talk about debanking, about free money that we print and that create inflation, interest rates that where we don't have any democratic debate on. It's also, we saw it during the crisis of 2008, the junk bonds, even in the name, it's written, they are junk. So rotten financial assets that people don't understand anymore how it works. Even financial people, even bankers don't understand how it works anymore. A big disconnection between finance and economy. We saw it during the COVID crisis, where the economy was on the ground, completely closed, in fact, and the markets, financial markets, that were going very well. So there was a big disconnection between those. And also, governance problem. We don't understand very well how the ECB is taking decisions, and there is never a democratic debate on the decisions that are made with finance. And it's partly assumed because we wanted to have independent financial central banks, which can have his, of course, his interests, but also his problems. So all these points brings us to, in fact, a financial system that is working very well for a very little amount of people, and all the other, the big part of the population is is not profiting of these financial markets. So when you look at all those problems, you have two possibilities for a political reaction. You have the left parties that are saying, okay, money is bad and we have to do the war against money. And they don't understand that money has brought us a lot of wealth, especially in our European countries. And then you have the right parties, and they see the same problems, but they are not very conscious about it, and partly also because they are comfortable, they are on the good side of the barrier, they decide to do nothing and to just let things go. And I'm a humanist, I'm a centrist, and I think, okay, in face of that, I see the positive things of the financial world, I see the negative things. How can we try to make it a better financial world? So I see three antidotes for this sick financial world. The first one is fighting financial ignorance. So I think there is a big problem in our Western world, in the world in general, is a big ignorance and a big incompetence among politicians, but also among all the population about on financial topics. There is a big ignorance, and we have to solve that problem, because money is the blood of our economy, is the blood of our society, and if we don't manage it well, then we have big problems as we know them now. There are a few global issues also with money happening now. So, of course, the appearance of a new monetary system with crypto, but also the de-dollarization to which we assist for the moment, that will have a big impact on our societies, on our economies. And I'm really not convinced that politicians and populations in our Western countries are aware of that. So I think we have to teach finance at school. From a very early age, we have to learn our children how to manage a budget, how to manage their money, what's the difference between shares and obligations, what's the difference, what's inflation, how crypto works. So that's very important. It's to fight ignorance and to teach from the beginning, from very early age, finance at school. Second thing is a tax reform. I think I speak for Belgium, but I think it's the same in France. We have a big problem in our countries is that work is overtaxed. Work is overtaxed and capital is undertaxed. So I know we have slightly different systems, but in generally we have built our systems on taxation of work and not on capital, and that is not fair. That is not fair. We have to change that. We have to really change that. What you always hear is politicians that say, yes, we have to lower taxes on work and make higher taxes on capital, but they do only the latter. They do only higher taxes on capital, but never lower the tax on work. So I'm convinced we have really to do a big tax reform in all our Western countries to equilibrate that, because it brings very unfairness in the system. So yeah, I have some details on the reform I propose in Belgium, but I don't think it's very relevant for here. And then the last antidote, of course, is using crypto as a counterpower in finance. That's very important. It's a counterpower. Never a power alone never works. In politics, you have power and counterpower. You have the executive power, you have the legislative power, you have the judiciary power that equilibrates them. In finance, you have only one power, and that's a big problem. We have to equilibrate that with a new power that is emerging now since a few years, and that's the crypto world. Yeah, of course, we talked a little bit about CBDC in the previous panel. I'm part of the people that are a little bit scared about what's happening now. If you see the political evolution in Europe, I'm quite convinced that in the decades that come, we will have to face authoritarian powers, and we have to prepare ourselves for that. And one way to do that is, of course, to keeping a free, accessible way of exchanging money, of exchanging value between us. And when I see what happened with the restraining of cash more and more, when I see what's happening with the CBDC, which has a big risk, big social risk, I think, we have to ask ourselves a question that is written here on the slides, and that is, in a digital society, is the monetary monopoly of the states not becoming a too big political power regarding our democratic standards? So the question is the monetary monopoly still something we can handle in a digital society? And I think no. I think it's becoming a too big political power, and we have to install a counterpower. And of course, Bitcoin, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. You will see it at the end of my slides. But I think Bitcoin, for that, has a very particular role. Of course, I think when you talk about counterpower, it's to give people freedom, financial freedom, and freedom is not anarchy. There is something between anarchy and non-freedom. It's called freedom, and we have to protect that. And also, of course, when you talk about a counterpower, it's to force the power to be reasonable, to act reasonably. And of course, the question of printing money is a big question we have to question in our democracies, because I think the results of what we did the last years, when you see the amount of money supply in circulation, you see that we are facing bigger and bigger problems now. A few months ago, all the economists, Christine Lagarde, also told us don't panic. The inflation will disappear magically in the coming weeks. It has been now 1 or 2 years. It's not the case, and now they are all saying, okay, yes, in fact, it's gonna be like this for a long time. But that has concrete impact on our lives, that has concrete social impacts on people, and the problem is that I think politicians are really not aware of this. So a little bit more consciousness, a little bit more awareness of the finance would be very important, and I think a counterpower like Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies that will appear can of course help this. Yeah, I talked about this. Maybe also, yeah, talking to you about the monetary revolution. So all this, of course, blockchain and crypto is a monetary revolution. When you see how you have to look a little bit to the past, to the history to understand this. Every time we invented a new technology, you have also a new way of exchanging value. When we had the metallurgy, we had coins and gold. Then we invented writing and printing, and the banknotes appeared. With the IT, we had already digital money. You have money on your. You have not really money on your phone, but you have access to digital money on your phone. And of course, now there is a new technology appearing. It will have an impact on how we exchange value. And if you understand the first one, you have to understand the last one also. It will not only be a monetary revolution, it will also be a social revolution. The way we store and exchange information has always determined how we organize ourselves in society. In the beginning, when we stored and exchanged information only by verbal tradition, by oral tradition, of course, we could organize ourselves only in very small groups of people, because it's very slow and it's very difficult to organize ourselves. We have to retain everything and we have to say everything to each other by voice. And that was during a lot of time the case. During millenaries, it was organized like this. So we lived in tribes. And at the moment, we invented the writing. We began to write things on papers and on stones in the beginning. Of course, when you begin to write and to store and exchange information, not only by verbal and by heart, but you can put it on a paper, you can organize yourself in a much broader way. And the cities appeared. With the printing, it was even easier, because you could send information all over the country. So the countries appeared, nation states. With the internet, you could send and store information at the other part of the world. So it's really continents that begin to organize themselves. And now we can even exchange information and value without any intermediary. So of course, it will accelerate much more the way we interact, and it will also change our social manner of organizing ourselves. We talk already, and for sure you heard about supranational networks, which I think will be one way of evolving in the next decades. Also, of course, when we talk about social revolution, we talk about DAOs. I think it will fundamentally change the governance of our enterprises and associations. It will change our democracies. It will change our institution, and it will also create things we cannot imagine for the moment. And I think that's a very important thing when we talk about all those technologies, especially from a political point of view. We have to be open to the future. We don't know yet what the technology will bring, what the technology will make possible. So it's very important we don't restrain ourselves in definitions, but that we stay open with our minds. It's also an economic revolution. Also, if you look a little bit to the past, in the beginning, you gain your money with your job. You was, I don't know, a painter, or and you gain your money with your job. But at the moment, we invented it was it was an invention of humanity. It was the companies. Okay, in fact, I can gain money with my job, but I can also create a company with shares of my company and creating value because with these shares, you can have a perspective on the future of how I will handle this company. And now with the blockchain, we add one more way to create economic value, and that's the tokens. Because with the tokens, you can not only give access to the property of your company, but also to some services, to some advantages, to a certain fidelity, and that will create a new way of creating value with always the same activity. So it's an economic revolution. And it's also a digital revolution. I don't have to explain this slide, I think, to people that are here at Polkadot. But of course, the Web3 is a wholly new way to handle internet. So what do we do when you see? If you see to my slide, I always put a R into revolution or evolution. Is it a digital evolution or revolution? Economic revolution or evolution? Why did I do that? Because that's a good question, a big question we have to ask all us, that politicians have to ask themselves. Do we want to create an evolution, or do we want to subir, to let the revolution happen? And I think we have, of course, to accompany this technology to create the evolution that and it's important that it happens smoothly, that we have all our population with us in this evolution. Otherwise, it will happen without us, but of course it will happen. Because of all what I explained, you see, it will happen. It's history. So it has no. It's not interesting to trying to stop that evolution when history is going. You see, when we invented printing, of course, banknotes appeared. You can trying to avoid that, but it was impossible because it's more effective. It's more efficient. So how can we act as a politician? I think the first thing is to have political awareness and competence. So of course it's lacking in all the parliaments in our Western world. I want politicians to be aware of the technologies that are coming. Here we talk about blockchain, but I would say the same for artificial intelligence, for metaverse, for all the technologies that are appearing now. I think it's very important to have politicians that understand them, that use them in their daily lives, because it's the future. And politicians are there to prepare the future. So the first thing is really to have politicians that understand all those technologies. Second thing is taking risk. We have a big problem in our Western democracies that we are afraid of taking risk. We are very risk averse, and that's a big problem because when you talk about future, when you talk about innovation, of course there is a part of risk. We will make bad decisions, we will make bad legislation, and we will put our population at risk somehow. But that's the price to evolve. The only place where there is no risk, it's in a coffin. You know, it's when you not in a coffin, when you die. Then there is no risk anymore. But that's the only way. So it's important because, of course, I'm talking here to entrepreneurs, and you have that in your mindset. But there is a real lack of ability to take risk in the political world, and that is really a big problem for our economies. Co-building the legislation, of course, we saw it with Mika in the beginning when there was a discussion. You saw and you felt really that the politicians were not understanding the technology, and so trying to legislate on a very bad way. So it's very important to talk to people, to be with the people that understand and that work on the technology to build an interesting legislation. And last point, stay open to all tech. I took my salary in Bitcoin. It was really to give a political signal, and I knew people understood. They heard about Bitcoin. They knew a little bit what we're talking about. So it was a political act, but it's not because I think there is only Bitcoin in the crypto world. I think we don't know what will be the technologies that will be emerging in the next decades. It's already it's still a very young ecosystem, and we have to be very open and ready to see new things happening also. All this is a matter of sovereignty. We talked about this. I heard the panel before talked about this. It's a matter of sovereignty in face of other countries, other continents, of course. There is a real race about this technology, and all countries, despite what you hear in the radio or what you see in the newspaper, there is a real race trying to take the shares of that of those new markets in each country. But it's also a matter of sovereignty in face of companies, of course, because if the public authorities don't understand how it works, don't legislate well, of course, our financial, but our social or economic sovereignty will be taken by private companies, by the GAFAM, by the new GAFAM that are coming. And of course, as a Democrat, as a centrist, I don't think that is the good way of working. We don't have to monetize our freedom, of course. So that was, I think, all I wanted to say. The most important thing, I think, is to understand that politicians have to take part of this evolution. I think in France it's a little bit more the case already than I see in other countries. But of course, it's also something I wanted to say to you. It's also your role of entrepreneurs, of companies active in this world, to do to go talk to politicians, to explain them there is something happening and they have to understand what's happening, to educate them, because sometimes there is a clear responsibility at political side. I say it everywhere, and also when I talk to my colleagues, but there is also a responsibility at your side, because sometimes I feel the entrepreneurs and all the people of the Web3 ecosystem are meeting a lot among them, meeting a lot between them, but not enough with the political and the financial institutions. That's also why and the idea is to be the place where the meeting place between European institutions, between politicians and the entrepreneurs. So the next edition is in June 2024, so it's not directly, but voilà a few words. I don't know if we take questions, or
if you want, if someone has a question.
Are there some questions, or are we finishing here and going to drink a Belgian beer?
Yeah. Or maybe if you have any questions, you can just feel free to ask.
It's okay, like this.
Yeah,
thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Christophe. So one should understand money before understanding Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Great. So thank you. Now I invite you to the 9th floor for the networking event, so we can take some drinks right now. And so tomorrow, see you at 10:30 here. So we will start again for an amazing day. Thank you guys. See you around and see you at the 9th floor.